WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. Certainly a late, tough, rough loss for the Ravens in the most unlikely way. Dennis Koulatsos joins us every week, and I join him on Thursday as part of the Sunday Sports Voice, now heard from 3 until 5 on Thursday afternoons around here. And Dennis, we talk about so many things, right? I mean, Drew Brees this and Kamara that and stopping Michael Thomas. And, boy, Jimmy Smith, he stunk. And Flacco's looking better but not good enough. And, I didn't think we'd be talking about Justin Tucker missing an extra point, right? Like that's not something that's usually part of the game plan. It feels like everything we talk about around here, the kicking game is not part of what ails us, yet it's what's ailing us this week and right here, right now. It's unusual, right?
Yeah, absolutely right, Nestor. We all knew he was going to miss one. He was bound to miss one. It's just, the time that he missed it, the place he missed it, what was at stake. It was a fun game to watch from a pure football standpoint, and I was looking forward to an extra period of football. I didn't want the game to end. It was that entertaining. Could the Ravens defense hold out and keep Drew Brees and company out of the end zone? Could the Ravens offense take advantage of the Saints' poor secondary? It was a great matchup. Both head coaches were aggressive. I thought it was a well-played game. They were errors and hit the ball very well.
What's incredible is I sit in that end zone, right? And I was not up there for the winning kick, but I was there earlier in the game. And the kick that swirled on him, Dennis, the wind literally picked up as they broke huddle. Yeah, they broke huddle, and I had potato chip wrappers blowing at my feet because I sit literally in the front row where that ball splits the upright. That's where my seat is. And that wind and the ball moved, and literally as they were coming up, all of us in our section groaned because the wind hit us. And we're like, oh, my God, he's about to kick the ball. And it almost, from where we were, that ball was bending big time. And I don't know what happened on the extra point at the end. I wasn't seeing it from that vantage point. I was at the 50-yard line. It looked good to me until I saw celebrating New Orleans Saints. And there was enough visiting Hoodats, Houdays, beignets, whatever the heck they are, that there was a lot of roar when the kick went askew because there were Saints fans. It looked like there were 5,000, 6,000 Saints fans in the stadium as well.
Well, you know what, Nestor, I've used Justin Tucker at my sales meetings and also his predecessor, Matt Stover, in terms of focusing on the process, right? When you're trying to execute something, if you focus on the process, the outcome will take care of itself. I thought it was a good snap. I thought it was a good set. The laces were out. I thought he planted his feet the right way. I thought he followed through the right way. It's a kick he's made, again, 222 times before. And, the process was right. He had no reason to aim left. It wasn't gusting at the time. It just, a gust of wind came out of nowhere. But, it doesn't come down to one play. It never does. The Ravens certainly left points on the field. There were some things that they couldn't get Drew Brees down a couple of times. But, hey, like we always say, the other team's trying to win as well. So, to me, it was a hard loss, but not a bitter loss. It was a well-fought loss. And they have no reason to hang their heads. They could just, as they said, go back to work. And what a stand-up guy Justin Tucker is. He asked Kevin Byrne if he can speak, and he was given, or Chatsfield, whoever, to take the podium, and he took the questions. He was a stand-up guy. He made no excuses, and to me, he's going up in my eyes, if anything.
Dennis Koulatsos is here. He is the SSV on WNST. You can hear him on Thursday from 3 until 5. I'll be joining him. Luke will be joining him. We'll be out in Owings Mills all week long. And, of course, our WNST tech service brought to you by Dennis and our friends over at Coons Florida Security Boulevard. Make sure you get on that. You'll get the injury reports and be up to snuff on everything going on as the Ravens get ready for Carolina. It's obvious to look at Justin Tucker and say, all right, missed the extra point. You give him the actual mulligan after 222 straight. Where are you with Jimmy Smith? I know we've talked about Delise Frank. We talked about Marlon Humphrey not being in there. The offensive line, we'll get to that in a minute. But Jimmy Smith took his lumps on Sunday. Michael Thomas maybe as good as there is in the business as well. But I don't know that you come back from this Achilles as quickly as maybe Terrell Suggs made it look before, right?
Yeah, first he missed the sack on first down, which would have been huge against Drew Brees. He whiffed on that one. Then he just absolutely couldn't handle Michael Thomas. To me, he looked flat-footed. He may have been in shape, but it does take a few weeks to get into football shape, and I'm hoping that's what it is with him versus him, getting old overnight as some fighters tend to do. His technique wasn't real good, and Michael Thomas was a handful. He certainly missed Marlon Humphrey, but then again, both teams had players out. It's going to happen, particularly this time of the year, but he certainly can handle a number one wide receiver right now, and hopefully Marlon can play against the Panthers because Jimmy, if I'm the offensive coordinator of the other team, I'm certainly going to pick on him.
All right, defensively, you do enough through 3 quarters, and then you don't do enough at the end. Dan, we've been at this a little while, you and me, going on 5 years now. We talk literally after every game, one way or another, my show, your show, together a couple times a week, sometimes on text. Sometimes you're retweeting me or you during the middle of the game. But, the trend last year was really, really good to the end, and Flacco would go to the length of the field and give him a lead, and then the ball goes over somebody's head. In this particular case, Flacco sort of kind of did it again, and the defense at the end wasn't good enough late. And, Tucker makes the kick as he's done 222 other times. They play into overtime. I'm not sure they were going to win the game in overtime. I'm not sure that they're not 3-2-1 right now or 4-2-1 or whatever it would be at this point with a tie at the end. I did not get the vibe that it was going to be automatic putting the Ravens defense back out there in overtime against Drew Brees.
Well, you have an offense that was averaging 36 points a game, right? And they held them to 24. So I thought the defense did enough to win. I put the blame on the offense, whether it was the drop passes. Certainly Willie Snead had a big drop. Hayden Hurst had another drop. The 3-and-out late in the game there that the offense did the defense a disservice. And football is the ultimate complementary team game, and one squad complements the other, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams. But I knew going in that the Saints were going to score 2 or 3 touchdowns. That was a given to me. The question was, how well would the Ravens offense do against the Saints defense? And to me, it didn't do enough. They just didn't put enough points on the board. And Sean Payton, that opening drive was magnificent from a purist football standpoint. Loved the game plan. He came out aggressive. He stayed with the run game. He understood his defense was deficient in stopping the pass, and he kept Joe Flacco on the bench, 10, 11, 12 minutes of that first quarter. I mean, that drive I thought would never end. But he limited the Ravens' opportunities against his defense, and he understood he had to stay ahead of the Ravens in order to give his team a chance to win the game, and that's exactly what he did. But I'm putting the loss primarily on the offense and their inability to score 4 or 5 touchdowns to offset what the Saints would do.
Dennis, for Flacco, 7 games into this and seeing what Taysom Hill was doing on the other side, the BYU kid running around, doing sort of kind of what the Ravens would like Lamar Jackson to be doing. I mean, they pulled Brees off the field on a 3rd and 2 at one point.
Yeah.
I talked to Coach Billick about this earlier in the week. It's sort of an unsettled thing, especially now in the modern era where you see 2 teams pulling one side a Hall of Famer off, the other side a $25 million decorated Super Bowl MVP, and a guy who's having a pretty good year. I like the current version of Joe Flacco. I don't know that we're anywhere near Lamar Jackson being the quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens.
Well, you know what? Here's the rub against Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco needs a clean pocket to be effective. He needs a stout offensive line, and the offensive line did a good job, not a great job, in keeping him clean. But that lineup, that slow release, he still had 2 batted passes that could have gone for gains, right? He saw somebody open. That's why he threw the ball.
Then you get the Snead drop, right? So,
the Snead drop. So, but, I mean, to me, again, I think, look, I made a prediction that Lamar Jackson would be the starting quarterback for the Ravens in 2019. I'm still holding on to that. I think the game has changed. I think you need mobile quarterbacks that can sidestep defenders, buy time with their legs, and try to make a difference that way. I'm not sure that Joe Flacco needs time, and he's got to get that ball out quicker. I know they worked with him in terms of the batted balls, but look, you're the guy's making $25 million a year, and I still expect more of him. I mean, call me a little bit jaded in that regard, but I expected the offense to score at least 4 touchdowns, which they had to do to beat this Saints team. You're not going to hold them. I mean, hold them to 24 points. Nestor, I thought, was a great job with the defense. Yes, they had lapsed in the fourth quarter. They had a 17-7 lead, but you're not going to hold out Drew Brees in the end zone. The Saints are going to beat 12-13 teams this year that's the other side of the coin. So I don't feel that bad about the loss, but this was another game that I think if the offense had done just a little bit more, and also some of the calls there, the pitch out, the option play with Alex Collins on third down was ridiculous. I mean, if you have Lamar Jackson running that, then yes, that's a viable play. But you can't run that play with Joe Flacco under center.
Dennis Koulatsos is here. He is the SSV on WNST. You can hear him from 3 until 5 on Thursday, again on Sunday morning as we get ready for the Carolina Panthers. And you talk about the offense and where we are with Lamar Jackson. 6 months we spend around here, 7 months talking about run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. We're halfway through the season here once we get to the end of the week, right? Not only do the Ravens not run the ball, nobody runs the ball. The Saints tried to run the ball a little bit more, but we watched more of Alex Collins doing the Irish jig and singing in the off and dancing in the off season in Ireland than we've seen of him really running the football. Now you have the offensive line with 2 guys missing. I know you're high on Zeus as well. He had his opportunity to play, and they went very, very short stacked on the offensive line this week with 2 starters down in Lewis and Hurst.
Yeah, you got to give them credit. I mean, the offensive line played well enough, but they do have to figure out the running game. At least, as you mentioned, the Saints committed to the running game. They understood they had to run some clock and keep the Ravens' offense off the field because, again, their defense is porous. And, look, that secondary, you had one guy back there, Marshall Lattimore, that's a player, but their 2 safeties were weak, and the other corner was weak. And the Ravens, they tried to take advantage of that middle area with their tight ends. They scored a touchdown there with Mark Andrews, but look, I just think they left some plays on the field in that middle part of the field, whether it was offensive line, Joe not having enough time, him having to get rid of the ball early on. But again, I just thought, look, it was a well-played game all the way around. Both head coaches were aggressive. And look, we could just make the argument the best team won at the end without having any other reservations about it.
Last thing for you before I let you go, and I'll be joining you on Thursday on the SSV on WNST between 3 and 5. Usually I'm about 4:15 that I join you. Concerns for the Ravens going into Carolina and then Pittsburgh and then bye and all of that. What are your concerns right now? What would keep you up late at night if you were John Harbaugh? For me, Jimmy Smith not playing well is a concern for sure. I think the offensive line a concern, but I think by and large just getting the potential out of this team because they're good enough. They really are. They're on any given week, on any given play, I'm still going to hang my hat that they're going to win more down the line than lose more. They'll be better than 4-3 over the next 7, I think. I think they're a better team than Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, and I think that's where they can really put the foot down here over the next couple of weeks is to win these division games at home in front of them that would create the kind of separation you're going to need when you're going fishing out in Kansas City and out in L.A. In December, because both of those teams look to be playoff teams to me. And playing them on the road in December, Ravens are going to have a tough way to go in December winning those games.
Yeah, the Bengals look like hot garbage in their loss against the Chiefs. I mean, just very, very poor effort. They didn't even show up. Look, I'm glad we're getting them at home. Pittsburgh, their defense is porous. Again, glad we're getting them at home. Now, the Panthers on the road, that's a challenge. That's a team that's on a rise. Just had a great comfort behind victory, and that bodes well for them. To me, my biggest concern is they've got to be able to run the ball because Jimmy Smith, although he didn't play well, we still have Marlon Humphrey. We still have Anthony Averett. We have guys that can step up as the season goes along. Brandon Carr back there, et cetera. He played real well. But to me, it's a running game. They have to figure out how to run the ball effectively. They don't have to be great at it, but they have to be enough where the defense respects it to the point where the Ravens don't become one-dimensional, to the point where the defensive line, they don't pin their ears back and come out of Flacco without giving any regard whatsoever to the running game. So to me, that's the biggest concern going forward. I think this is a playoff team, and they have to right the ship against the Panthers to get to that 5-win total versus being 4-4 at this point of the season.
I already don't like Cam Newton enough, so this will be more fun. We better not lose to him.
Well, you know what? They've got some drama there with Eric Reed and whatnot. They've invited some drama to their team, and the focus it takes away the focus from football. The Ravens, on the other hand, they're going to be all business, and again, like Suggs said back in 2011, when you go on the road, you got to pack your defense and your running game. Well, the defense they'll pack, but the running game to me is a question. And once again, as was the case against the Saints, and as will be the case going forward, the story is going to be the Ravens' offense against the opposition defense. That'll determine whether this team makes the playoff or not. It's the offense versus the opposition defense.
Well, I remember we were just trying to get a touchdown and kick 2 or 3 field goals to get to like 17 or 20 in the past. Now we wake up and expect 30, and when we get 23 and a missed extra point, we go home losers, and a defense that held Drew Brees to 7 points for 3 quarters but couldn't do it in the fourth quarter. Here's Dennis Koulatsos, the SSV on WNST, heard from 3 until 5 on Thursday as well as Sunday mornings. Dennis, tell him what's going on over Coons Ford Security Boulevard here this week.
Well, it is 2018, and we have a high-powered offense here at Coons Ford. That's what we do. We sell a lot of cars, a lot of volume. We sell them way below market value, and we're the leaders on the East Coast in Mustang sales, Explorers, F-150. You name it, still some 0% for 72 months out there. We have a ton of vehicles with heated seats, and this time of the year, Nestor, heated seats and heated steering wheels that come in very handy.
You've taught me life's lessons in the important things of first world living. Heated seats, very, very important. And why does like the first 58-degree day at the football stadium feel like it's like 12 below? Why is that?
That plus the wind factor. But the next thing is we got to get your mitts on the heated steering wheel because you haven't lived. Not only when you get the heated seats does that feel good for your back, but for your hands, you'll never wear gloves in the car again.
I wear gloves. It's a Dundalk thing.
Now you'll take them off. The first time you get a car with a heated steering wheel, you'll be living. You haven't lived until then.
Dennis, I'll be living with you on Thursday at 4:15, and hopefully, it's a little weird with this Cam Newton thing because I've always wanted to attend one of his losing press conferences. I didn't do the one, at the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, but I have to go in our own locker room. But I would like to beat them, and I'll be monitoring that one. I won't do it in person, but I'd like to be a part of that. There's nothing better for me than watching Cam Newton cry after they lose.
Well, you might, I thought you wanted to go there for some fashion device. The way he's a pretty snazzy dresser, he wears capris and all kind of other stuff that, wouldn't play well in Dundalk or Essex at any point in the history of those towns.
I remember when Joe Flacco began the press conference by licking his fingers, and I didn't know what the hell he was doing. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I'm like, I don't know what you're doing, dude. And I don't know that anybody else in the room knows what you're doing. But then it was explained to me by, like, Luke and some of the young cool people about that. So.
Right. He was very out of character for Flacco at his age.
And by the way, Tucker standing up and standing tall at the presser, and Crabtree 2 weeks ago, and Jimmy Smith, high-character guys in this locker room, right?
Yeah, they'll be fine. They didn't lose to the Browns at home. They lost to the Saints at home. We'll be fine going forward. It's a very well-coached team. They're put together. Got to figure out the running game, clean up some things. They'll be okay going forward.
He is Dennis Koulatsos. He is the SSV on WNST. You can find him at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. You can find me out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 at WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.